Well, Jim, we'll continue on with this happiness guaranteed episode of the Drive-Thru, but I wanted to ask you about formats. You talked about in Mid-South, you laughed about the idea that you would have been in possession of a format and it would have been anything like what you read with the TNA format earlier. When did that change? And what was it like for you specifically in 93 when you went up to Raw for the first time in the summer of 93? Were those formats different than everything you had ever seen before?
No, they were more nicely typed, revised a lot more. Revisions in the old days past the first draft that was typed up were done with a fucking pen on the fly, right? But they would actually have shit retyped when they changed something. But otherwise, no, the format looked mostly the same, even. And obviously, we didn't get them. The talent didn't get the formats in the WWF in 1993 either, because there wasn't anything on it you needed if you knew who you. There was a list again of all the matches by the door. Just go out and do your match, do your fucking promo, you're fine. The ones that Bruce and I started writing in 96 when I joined the, what did they call it by that time? The creative team, booking committee, whatever, were still the same basic formats. And I don't want to expose our business, but we took a piss break and I tried to get in a stack and find just a sample format from that. And I haven't got the format yet. I found a couple of other things, but the ones that were printed in the Midnight Express scrapbook, the ones that I did when I was on the WCW booking committee, it was basically the same thing. You've got your blank format that you used for all the programs. Raw had a format, syndicated television had a format that had all of your commercial breaks and the time of them in it, and you filled it in as you went. And it started with the open of the show, announcers, match, whatever, just that information. So it would all fit on the same sheet, segment by segment. And it wasn't until, again, Shitstain had to begin justifying his position, and then the crew got bigger, and then Vince thought that there should be more detail, and then they started numbering with their own numbering system every item on the formats so that you could find it easily. It wasn't just segment 4, item 3 anymore. Now they started at the top, so you had 100 different numbered items in the program, including copyright signature got its own number, right? For 3 seconds at the end, copyright signature or whatever the fuck. And it just got to be more paper, and then they started cutting trees down, and then they started putting the verbiage in the promos and treating it like a script of a television show, and it got ridiculous. But that all came, around in the late 90s with all of the other hysteria. And then I came back to OVW and started doing a 1-page format. But I would have 25 pages of handwritten notes that I would refer to for everybody's instructions. And, then more guys got formats just because it was a school. It's here's your homework, study it, see what everybody else was supposed to do. Then watch the show and see whether they did it or not. But that was because it was a learning experience and not because we were trying to do, high concept television movies.
How many guys wanted to have their promos written out for them versus guys who wanted to do it the traditional way? In OVW.
In OVW, well, as I've said, it was a mixture. It wasn't fish nor fowl. I didn't want to write them a promo that they would do word for word, because then they're just actors, and that's not wrestling. But because I was the booker, all the producers, all the agents, everybody, I didn't have time to sit with each guy for, 20 or 30 minutes and go back and forth, blah, blah, blah. So I would sit down with everybody individually and I'd tell them verbally the promo, what I thought that they should say in this situation. And then we would discuss it. And if they wanted to throw anything in or whatever the fuck, or ask any questions. And then I would say, now here is what I just told you. Here in my handwriting, I've jotted this down, what I just told you. So if you have a question, you can't find me because I'm over here going through this finish with somebody. It might be in here. I don't want you to memorize it. This is your story. Now you just tell the fucking story. So if it was a long thing, that definitely would happen. If it was just a pre-tape and I was standing there in front of them, I wouldn't give them anything written down. I would tell them here. And this was a thing I started with the guys in MLW just a couple years ago when I would produce some of their stuff when I was doing the commentary for them. Tom Lawler, I remembered one time, was doing an interview and he had come up with something that was witty to say, but it didn't fit the picture because of what had happened to him. The attitude he should have. He should be more pissed off. The demeanor that he should have had, his was more frivolous and, it was witty stuff. But I said, look, it's good. It doesn't fit this. This is the demeanor that you should have after something like this has happened to you. I forget what the angle was, but I said, but you've been a UFC fighter. Look at your fucking ears. He had his long hair covering his ears. I said, fucking flip that hair back. And let me see those goddamn, fucking things of broccoli on each side of your head. You were a former UFC fighter. If the same thing had happened to you, if the same thing had been said about you when you were in that world, how would you have responded if it was a real situation? And let them bring that out. It's like sometimes, a band will be writing a song and they'll come up with some cool lyrics. But the lyrics don't really fit the song. So save the lyrics, but they don't fit this song. So in some cases, you find guys that will write things for themselves or come up with things that might be great for them to say in certain situations, but not necessarily in this one. And that's where you have to work with them and say, no, this wouldn't be your reaction if this wouldn't make any sense. Don't just go for the cool line, go for the real response. And so I never liked writing shit down and expecting people to read it word for word. If you read it word for word, it's not going to be any good. It's going to sound like all these other promos where they're memorizing shit and reading it. And remember, one of the fucking formats from the WWE a couple of years ago had the stage direction. So-and-so lifts his hand to his head. Fuck me. If somebody had told me, well, when you go out and say this, we want you to lift your hand to your head, you know what I'd have done? I'd have scratched my ass. Your thoughts?